little interesting story here. Went down to the barbers just before Christmas, and as we all know, if you're with the barber or a hairdresser, if you're a lady, um, you get chatting about kids, your wife, your husband, where you're going on your summer holidays and all the rest of it. And got chatting to this guy, Tris, who's my barber, and said to him, where have you been the last week or so? And so he started very passionately talking about Lions Barbers, and um, it kind of struck me a little bit by surprise. And as a chair of a mental health charity, it kind of really piqued my interest. So I got talking to him a little bit more, and so he's very kindly put me in touch with Cara and Tom, who I'm delighted have joined us today, just to talk about Lions Barbers and what they do, how they operate. And it just seemed that there's such a sort of I suppose a synergy, I suppose, in what we're doing. And by the way, Tris, I need to come down and get my hair cut at some point, so don't judge me on that. But over to you guys, really. I mean, it was just it was a fascinating thing, and after I'd looked you up on the website and all the rest of it as well, I looked at your TED talk as well, Tom, which I thought was excellent. And you cover off in there how people sit in a chair having their hair chopped or their beard chopped or whatever, and they talk to their barber and tell them things that they wouldn't speak to their wife about or their best mate about, and it seemed like a really sort of almost like an open forum in a barber's chair. But there's a job for you to take over, really, Tom, because that just fascinated me. That TED talk is amazing.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's probably at that point in my life, the most terrifying thing I ever had to do. It really actually, I think I didn't sleep for probably 6 to 9 months because of that. They approached me and asked me to do a TED talk. I was incredibly nervous about it. I'd never done any public speaking without a haircut in front of me.
Wow. Okay.
I'd traveled the world cutting hair, being on stage, but I was always talking about the haircut that I was doing, and and then just to go and stand on a red spot in front of 1,000 people live and 35,000 people live streaming, talking about mental health with a script that you have to follow word by word and memorize.
Right.
Was incredibly terrifying, but I think it's served its purpose. It's reached the people that have seen it have had positive things about it, so that's a positive thing to say about it. So that's really good. And also, I just say that Tris is an absolute legend and a pure diamond. He's one of our volunteers, and he travels the country working for us, providing haircuts in all sorts of situations. From I can remember one stage at did the British GT last year. We had we were part of one of the teams, so we had the Lions Barber Collective McLaren, and we were the demographic at the racetrack is about 85% men.
Yeah.
So it was the perfect demographic. And there was one day when it was so wet and windy, me and Tris were actually used as weights to hold down the marquee to stop it from blowing away. So in the wind and rain, whilst people were cutting hair inside it, which was I think the moment when we bonded the most.
So tell me how this kind of operates. I mean, when you do these events, because I think you've been to Red Bull or something as well, haven't you?
Yeah, Tris joined us at Red Bull. So basically, we've I mean, it all started from I lost a friend from suicide, and it kind of I wanted to do something about it. I never envisioned it or wanted it to be what it has become. It wasn't my dream to work in mental health arena, but it has become a passion and a purpose. And we, as a charity, were struggling with getting funding and grants, and I'm sure you understand what that's like with applications after applications and not hearing back and not knowing what's going on. It makes it very difficult to continue as a charity. So we decided that it was middle of 2022 that we were actually going to go and do these pop-up barbershops and use that as a way of getting donations from corporations for us to go into their places.
Okay, yeah, cool.
And we cut hair on site and provide a free haircut for their staff. And it's like haircuts and headspace, basically. They come and sit in the chair. All the barbers and hairdressers even are trained, and we we just provide a free haircut and a space for them to talk, and it's incredible the response we've got, and the fact that when we go onto these sites, like building sites, corporate spaces like the Hewlett Packards and the eBays, on racetracks, sporting events, football grounds, live music, festivals, it doesn't take very much for people to open up and talk to us in the chair. They've never met us before. They'll probably never see us again, a lot of them. And we just start every single haircut in the same way. We do the consultation, how do you want your hair done, obviously. And then once we start with that, we tell them, well, we ask them, do you know anything about Lions Barber Collective? Do you know what we do? Some people do, very few mostly, but when they say they don't, we just tell them what we do. And once you do that, it's just like you open the door, and the floodgates, they just continue to just tell you stuff. They tell you everything and anything. We've had suicide interventions at events. We've had people just come up and want to talk to us. They've seen what we're doing. We've had times where it's been very difficult to even ask what they want done to their hair, because as soon as they sit in the chair, they offload to you. And it's just amazing.
Incredible, isn't it?
They men don't want to talk, but they do. They do want to talk. They just need to know it's safe. I think that's the biggest thing.
I'd agree with that. Like I said, with my own son, I won't say what about. I know I did off air, but even with my own son, I've spoken to my barber, Will, about all sorts of stuff, about how my wife's done me in and all this kind of stuff, and it's weird. It's weird.
Yeah,
it's a gift, isn't it?
It's having this. But it's also, for some reason, when you sit in that chair, you have a license to talk. And I was going to say, because when you said, Tom, that these people have never seen us before, and they're not unlikely to see us again, and you kind of wonder at that stage, well, is that the reason that they're opening up? Because they feel that they can open up with no consequences. So you're not going to judge them. At the end of the day, you pack up with your stuff. You head north, they head south, or whatever, and the chances are you'll never see them again. But that's not the case with barbers that you go and see. I mean, Tris knows a lot of stuff about me. I know a lot of stuff about Tris. I mean, not especially personal, but I went through a cancer journey, which we were talking about. But I don't tell everybody that. Why am I sitting in that chair? And I guess it's maybe just the close proximity, or the fact that they've actually got hands on you. So I mean, you are very, very close at that point. They're inside your personal space because they have to be. Is that what actually opens stuff up? It's just a odd situation, isn't it?
I think it's really weird. I think it's a very unique situation. I think that level of intimacy between guys is very rare, and often lovers and mothers are only other people that touch your head or that close to you. I think it works both ways. I think the fact that we can go onto a building site and you get big burly builders come and sit down and think nothing of letting me run my fingers through their beard and their hair and trim them and cut them and all that. There's nothing. It's totally normal, right? It's totally normal to come and have another bloke do that. So they feel comfortable in that situation. I think having a haircut is a positive thing for most people. People enjoy it. And their appearance is always going to be better when they come out. Yeah, exactly. And I think that license to touch is massive. That intimacy, that trust. But when it comes to a barbershop, you get to know people. You do that, but time and time again, I've known people 20 plus years now. I've been there for their entire life journey as they've been with me. And there's people who were completely single when I first met them, and now their kids are married. So I've seen that whole journey.
Do you think it's because you're not looking at each other? Because the reason I said it, because I can't remember, somebody said it, or somebody said it. I don't know whether that's a face-to-face or on the old internets, but I was like, if you ever want to have a hard conversation, do not sit how we kind of are, like face-to-face. Not go to a driver. Or do you think there's that logic?
I 100% do. I think that whole go for if you go. I think most people can relate to that a car journey with somebody, or going for a walk with somebody. You end up having the best conversations when you're doing those. I don't know. There's no pressure on it. I think that whole it's quite confrontational, especially for guys. Sit down. So right, let's sit down and sort this out. What's going on with you? It feels like very official, very
immediately. Your back goes up.
Yeah. Whereas I think for us, we do have eye contact. It's through a mirror, so it's not direct. And I think I think it was Samaritans. Someone did some research anyway, and it basically said that men are better at talking whilst doing something else. So that's why a lot of these things work, like the men's sheds and the people working on cars or going for walks or whatever it may be, works. I think think about getting a haircut. You're not sitting there going, right, I'm going in for my therapy session now. You're just having
yeah.
And we're in a great position because we see people regularly, but with it's like intermittent as well. So we see people for 20 years, but I see them every 4 weeks for 20 years, or every 6 weeks for 20 years. So there's those questions that we may sort of we go on holiday this year, the usual jokey ones for hairdressers and barbers. But how have you been since last time I seen you? What have you been up to? You were going. Have you guys ever realised that barbers and hairdressers seem to remember stuff about you as well? Like, so you said last time you said you were going to do this. How did it go?
Just like to say that, yeah.
And then you say, so what are you doing next week? We got anything planned for the weekend? You got anything coming up? Those kind of questions, actually, you can really gauge how someone's feeling by that, because most people have got something to look forward to. They've got things coming up. Even if it's just, oh yeah, I've got this weekend I've got the boys, or I'm doing this, or I've got a takeaway on tomorrow night, or whatever it may be. There's little things. It doesn't have to be these huge birthdays or holidays. And if someone's got nothing to look forward to, that's quite a desperate sort of place for someone to be in. So you can if someone sits in your chair and they're saying, no, I've got nothing to look forward to, what's the point? And you can recognize those changes in people. It's quite a serious question, isn't it?
And it all starts from small talk, really, doesn't it? Yeah. What are you up to over the weekend? It's small talk, really, isn't it? But it just has this power to move into a far bigger arena.
I
far
think
more serious.
We get to know people very well as clients, and it's when I developed the training working with Dr. Peter Aitken around it, and I was very adamant that it wasn't going to be about clinical diagnosis of people. Like, we don't need to know what bipolar is, we don't need to know what PTSD is, don't need to know what depression is. You're not there to prescribe and diagnose people. We just need to know when something's wrong. And me and Dr. Peter Aitken came to the conclusion that it was basically changes in behavior, means that something has happened, and therefore gives us an opportunity to ask a question. And I think for us as barbers and hairdressers, we see people every 4 to 6 weeks. And in that time, you can notice a change. Someone comes in, they always want to talk about football, or they always want to talk about their kids, or they're always going on about the gym, or they want to talk about, and then they come in and they don't want to talk about it, and they're completely out of character. Then that's a sign that something's happened, and that's when we can ask these questions. And I think because we are that familiar stranger, people are more comfortable with talking to us about those things and us asking those questions, because we're not going to necessarily tell their family unless it's obviously they're in harm,
very serious
danger, but in danger of harm.
Do you ever call stuff out? And I'll give you context. I don't know. Steve, I know I've used you loads of times. Steve knows me better than probably any of the other trustees, probably except Dot, but he knows me better than most people. So he knows when I'm flagging, if I go a bit quiet or whatever. Sometimes he's noticed stuff before I've even noticed. And with me, just because of our relationship, he's like, Dan, I don't know. I think you've called me a dick before.
Yeah.
And whatever. Bear in mind, like, he's me struggling with my depression. He's like, "Don't you be a dick."
But that's how. but that's what you respond to.
No, it is. Yeah.
If I came in all kind of nicey, you wouldn't respond in the same way.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's important as well. It's relatable for blokes. I think a lot of mental health stuff is very woo-woo and fluffy. And I've been to these mental health festivals and spoke at them and things. And it's it works for whoever goes there, but it's mostly middle-aged menopausal women meditating in a field. It's like in the middle class as well, a lot of them, and it's all crystals and what do you call them, those pan things, whatever they're playing, and
the sound bar,
pan pipe things.
Also jumping around and yoga and stuff, and that's not relatable for most blokes. That's not how we deal with it. And the mental health isn't just that as well. It's about, that's fine, that works for people, but it's about making stuff relatable for blokes as well. I think calling someone out, as your mate and saying, look, you're being a dick, that makes you stand up and go, yeah, actually, I am being a bit of a dick, or whatever it may be. It works different for everyone, but I do think we do. I've had to call people out before and say, look, you're not yourself. What's going on?
Well, I think and I'm glad you said about the whole feedy stuff, because I'm not doing a sweeping statement. I can only speak through my perspective, and I'll use me and Steve for example. I never ever talk about emotions. And so I'm just not that kind of bloke. And I think we're moving in that weird world. We're moving in that things like, oh, get in touch with your feminine side. Yeah, again, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's the type of bloke you are, get in touch with these. Let's have a box of tissues and sit in a circle and all this. I'm not that kind of bloke. But I will say that I'm having a shit day.
Mm.
So the outcome is the same. The way of getting there is completely and utterly different. And I think we're moving in a fucking dangerous world where everything is a one-size tick list.
Mm.
And I did a talk with Aviva the other day, actually. So that was terrifying. That really was in London and all this kind of stuff. And I completely and utterly wrote off my script. So I was like, do you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to talk about high functioning depressive and how I think your policies are wrong. And literally tore it apart. And I was just like, when I was massively depressed and attempted suicide and all this kind of stuff, I was the best salesman. I was DJing, I was racing motorbikes, I was the top of my game, and everyone was like, you're fucking brilliant, blah, blah, blah. And then I was going home massively depressed and tried to overdose and all sorts because everyone's looking for the wrong signals.
Yeah.
And so, Cara, have you got any? I don't want to turn you into a spare part.
No, this often happens in meetings, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Tom's obviously the face of a charity and he's obviously CEO and founder.
Yeah.
But no, I did actually see saying that I saw a really interesting campaign on LinkedIn yesterday for mental health, and it's kind of like it's sort of like pans, like one of the pictures was like a sort of a shot of a coffee shop, and there's a lady sort of forefront, she's looking quite down, and it says like this is what depression looks like, and it's in the background you can see like a really small bit of text with a lady who's laughing, and it's actually referencing the lady in the background who's laughing, and another one is like, this is what anxiety looks like, and again it's someone standing up talking to a crowd of people, but it's the person in the background that actually they're focused on. So I think that is really true. Like I've always suffered of anxiety, but whenever, and I'm always quite sort of have always been quite sort of tried to keep that hidden, but whenever I tell people, they're always so shocked because they're like, you come across as being really confident, you come across as being really easy to talk to and that kind of thing, but I've always massively struggled with social anxiety, but nobody knows that. So you're right, I do think it's we're kind of focusing on the wrong signals frequently of what depression looks like, what anxiety looks like, what somebody who's suicidal looks like, and often they're completely wrong.
Yeah, I'd agree with that one massively. Tommy is going to say something, I think.
I 100% agree. I think it's I think we're in a world now, well, comparison is the thief of joy, right? And that's a common quote that I just try to live by. But with social media now, everyone has this perception of what everyone else is living like and what everyone else, and that's what that becomes your persona. That's what people think you are. People think you are this person that's on social media, but the reality is we're all struggling with something. We've all got something going on. As I said before we come on recording, I've had a terrible time the last 18 months, and you get these messages, people going, oh, you're smashing life. I'm like, no, not really.
No, I'm really not.
really not. It is stressful. But it is what it is. And I think it's difficult, isn't it? I think I try and be open and tell people about stuff as much as possible. And it's amazing. Sometimes people are very welcoming to it. Sometimes it bites you on the bum, and I think it's hard, isn't it? Because I think we go into a lot of places and we talk to these builders or people who work in office spaces or other places as well within NHS, and they said, well, I don't tell my boss or don't tell people about it, even though we've got mental health allies or a process, because I'm fearful of losing my job. I'm fearful of losing any opportunities. I'm fearful of being judged or fired or this or that. And until that changes, then because people are telling us to open up and talk about it, and they're telling men to be vulnerable, but we're not comfortable when they are. And it's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with you. So is there, so when people get in your chairs, is there like a recurring pattern of people with life struggles?
In what sense? Do you mean like this, the same people?
I don't know. The missus doing a heading, or money problems, or
yeah.
Is there like something what comes up time and time again?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's different, right? But I think situational stuff causes mental health problems, right? I think money, relationships, loss of anything, whether it's loss of a job, loss of a family member, loss of a dog, loss of a whatever it may be. Yeah, I think they tend to go around those things, and it's all relative as well. You know, you can't, just because you don't necessarily understand something doesn't, and you think, well, you know, your hamster's died, get over it. Christ, that hamster might have been their world, you know. So
Yeah.
it's all, it's, you can't everything, and I think people is, you know, validation for their feelings as well. People might think, well, oh, it's only a hamster, they're going to think I'm all right, Wally, but actually, you know, your problems are just the same as someone else's. Just because it's not as grand, you know, it's grand on the grand scheme of things doesn't mean as
No,
much to you as well. So
it's just the
very
topic
varied.
changes.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
varied, but it's mostly around loss, or struggles with finances and relationships, really.
Okay, that's interesting. I like to say I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. I kind of expected that, but yeah, I think that the only way that we can conquer these stigma bubbles is by just talking, and we massively promote the best way. And yeah, again, I said it at Viva and schools and unis. When people all say, it's like, how do I get my friend talking? So, well, don't talk about mental health. Don't use them words, mental health. Just say, how's your day? And that's it, because we all have good days, we all have bad days, and we all have in between days. But the dangerous thing is, and I see it time and time again, I don't know how many videos I've done one-on-one conversations like these. It's in the hundreds now. The pattern I see is day one's problems turn into day two's problems, day three's problems. And the next minute, 2 years later, I'm doing a video of them talking about how they've got themselves in a mental health breakdown. Because they didn't talk about the little tiny problems in the beginning. And yet again, there'll be someone watches going, it's easy for you to say. It's not. I've had 30 odd years of utter depression and tried to kill myself and all sorts.
Yeah.
I don't want to compare, but I've been in some fucking dark places.
Yeah, I mean, I've had suicidal thoughts. I've had them recently. I haven't actually, you know, felt I was actually going to action them or do them, but they popped into my head as a solution. I think most people have had that place where they feel, I can't do this anymore, I need to escape. And again, it doesn't have to necessarily be suicide, but people have had that feeling, I can't get, this is just too much overwhelm, I need to get out. And I think you're right with the, you know, it's like letting off steam, right? It's a kettle. If you don't let off any steam, it's going to explode. But it's all, you know, it needs to release. And we spoke to an occupational therapist quite a while ago now, but she said to me, by the time people reach her, they've lost their job, they're addicted to something, they've lost their family, they've lost their house, they're literally right in the gutter, and it's really
they're really in dire straits at that point. Yeah, that's mad, isn't it?
What you're doing in the hair industry is that you're having those conversations with people weekly, monthly, whatever it may be, and you're giving them that chance to offload about whatever it may be, like you say, their wife, their family, their job, their boss, their finances, and hopefully that will actually prevent people from, you probably have prevented people from getting serious mental health issues, but it's really hard to perform any sort of data around that, because how could you say that Dave hasn't taken his life because he's been speaking to Phil the barber for the last 6 years? It's really hard to say that, you know.
It's impossible.
I don't know how to come back on that one, really. So
no, I don't know. I mean, it's you know, it's I mean, it's all good stuff, isn't it? You know, I think and I think you're very similar to us in the fact that all you're trying to do is promote people talking, people releasing, and then kind of trying to signpost them to the right place. I mean, you know, I can't tell you too much about it, but there's we've had a desperate email in this morning, you know, which Dan and I have been looking at, which is just awful. I mean, it's just, and you think, well, there's nothing we can do about it because we're not qualified to do anything about it, but it's just then signposting that person to the right place. You know,
I think it's hard, isn't it? Because you can't lead a horse to water. You need a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I know that they've got to want to do it themselves, but I think for me, it's about trying to find as many different types of water as possible. Because, like I said, one size doesn't fit all. But if you put like someone will have San Pellegrino, someone's happy with tap water, but you know that if you can provide tech services, phone lines, you know, some people like sitting around in a circle talking about it. Some people like hiking. Some people try and provide as many things as possible and encourage those people to keep on trying the different things. But I think some people don't realize how exhausting it is for the people like us that are working in this environment all the time, you know, listening to all these things. And that's our day to day. You know, we listen to people, and I know for fact everyone locally knows what I do. I can't even go for a pint without someone coming and talking to me about it in the pub. You know, the worst case, it was like 5 people in one night come up to me and just recognized me and opened up and shared with me what their problems. It's quite a big toll to take on, isn't it? And like you said, that email was obviously effective.
It is. I mean, Dan takes the brunt of that for us, to be fair. I mean, you know, there's a few that kind of filter out to me and the rest of the trustees and so on. It's not all that often, but I mean, you take the brunt of that, Dan, really, don't you?
Yeah, but now, well, I've been burnt out before because of it, and I stopped posting for ages and all sorts. My brain was just thing. But I think this
frazzled.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got a good therapist and a load of other stuff now, but I think that was going to lead up to our closing conversation. There's a little cue of let's draw it in a minute in a nice subtle way. How do you not take on other people's shit? And I mean that in a nice way.
That's difficult not to, right?
I guess that's an open question to both of you, because obviously, Carl, I know you have to deal with Tom's shit.
He takes on my shit, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I don't need to speak to you because you've got your. But how do you go for it? How do you not take that stuff on?
I don't. I think it's inevitable. Personally, I think it's inevitable. I think it depends on the type of person that you are. We've had a couple of instances where we've had to provide interventions, haven't we? Where we've been contacted by people, or I ended up on the phone to somebody who was a barber who was elsewhere in the country. He wasn't anywhere near us, and we'd found out that he was really struggling, and he was having suicidal thoughts, and he was kind of had gone sort of AWOL essentially. And I felt this, sort of great responsibility to do something. We're not a listening service. We don't provide that service. We're a signposting service, but I couldn't not pick up the phone and try and contact him, knowing, but I think between us, like after that event, Tom was on the phone to emergency services trying to get hold of the police. I was trying to talk to him to keep him talking. But I've got Tom to offload to. And I think it's important to offload to, I've good supportive family. I think it's important to offload to those people. But I think there is an element of it being inevitable that you do take that on, as long as you have someone good then to offload to at the end of the day. That's how you kind of keep that down or keep that sustainable, is if you carry it around yourself in your head continuously, that you're going to end up struggling, I think.
What about you, Tom?
I think for me personally, when it comes to people telling me stuff, I'm quite good with that now. I'm quite good. I think I've been doing it for 20 years. People have told me stuff, like 12 people a day for the last 20 years cutting hair. They've told me their shit, basically. So I think and I've got to a stage where I go, right, next. I can kind of just like, I don't really have to take it on board or remember it or whatever. And now I think I can quite good at that build up resilience, I suppose, in that sense. I think if there's a suicide intervention, I feel happy. I think if there's an intervention now, I feel absolutely relieved, and it's an exciting thing for me to do that and feel this is my purpose. This is why we're doing what we're doing. They chose to come to us, and we managed to keep that person alive because of the stuff that we've put out there. They chose to come to us. That's an honor. And again, I think it's an honor and a privilege that people want to tell me stuff. Dealing with my own shit, that's the problem. I think like me actually having to I'm quite comfortable with people telling me stuff and listening to them and offering them information and support, but then finding people to.
That's not actually affecting you, though, is it? It's your own shit that affects you, that you're thinking about constantly.
Yeah, it's not thinking about other people's stuff. And I think that I honestly believe that's through the cutting hair and seeing multiple people all day, every day, listening to multiple conversations. Obviously, you can't just take all of that on all day long, because you just can't. I mean, you have to build up resilience.
Let me ask you one question, because I now have regular therapy and all this kind of stuff, mostly because of MANUP, if I'll be honest with you. But they got to a point after 6 months, 8 months, I don't want to die. Let's say after a little while of doing that therapy, I started thinking to myself, going, right, I'm seeing these messages. We had one today. And I don't want to say that I'm brushing it off, but I'm dealing with it so well. And I had to question myself. I thought, this is making me heartless.
Yeah. Well, no, I think you're dealing with it with a practical head on, rather than an emotional head.
Yeah, and
because the emotional head, I mean, that email that we got today, if if you're going to deal with that with an emotional head, you're in all sorts of shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's awful. So you have to deal with that. And you know, when we were having a conversation earlier on, Dan, about it, you know, it's been written by somebody that's in pure panic.
Oh, it's
because it's about this long and pretty much all one sentence.
Yeah.
But the spelling is correct. So it's somebody who's just sitting there and offloading their head and just going, shit, you know, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? You know, this is the situation, and I've tried this and I've tried that, and bang, 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 and it's going all the way down through all of this stuff. And I was sitting there trying to read it, and because it's all one sentence, you're like, oh, you need a break in here somewhere. It is exhausting, but it's been. I think we agreed, didn't we, Dan, that somebody's written that in panic.
Yeah, absolutely. Last resort. Absolutely. Yeah.
You can't keep dealing with stuff like that emotionally, because otherwise you'd be wrecked yourself, wouldn't you? You'd actually
completely.
I don't think I would have been able to do what I did for the last nearly 10 years if I dealt with every single thing emotionally in that sense, and took it on board. Obviously, there's emotions tied to it in the moment, and it's terrifying,
because otherwise you wouldn't be doing it,
or whatever, and you care about it. But if you took everything on board, you'd just be broken. And I think it's about building up resilience. It's about, and I think a lot of the time it's not. You know, there was a situation recently. I was in bed, and I was on social media, and someone messaged me to say, can you help me? My friend is in the process of taking their life. What do I do? And I just thought, amazing. They've messaged me. They know, friend of a friend is struggling. They've messaged me. I gave them exactly what to do. I know what to do. Very, very bullet point form, pretty much. Stayed online with them. An hour later, they messaged me, go, they're safe. They're in hospital. They're okay. I did what you did. Thank you so much. I didn't know what to do. And I'm like, that was just. It's amazing that's just knowledge to me now. I just know, and there wasn't an emotional tie to it. It was just, I know what to do. I can help them. I can share this knowledge. How amazing is it that they came to me? But also, how sad is it that people don't know what to do?
Yeah,
it's such a taboo subject.
Yeah,
and it's so actually quite simple, really.
Yeah, but it's fair. I've had conversations with the police and all sorts. I know they don't deal with mental health that much at the moment, but that's a different video. And but I asked them at Ipswich, I was like, what would you do if somebody who said they just wanted to top themselves? And both of them said different answers. And they had to ring up somewhere, or radio, whatever they did. And even there they got two other answers as well. And I'm stood here like, oh. So no one knows.
So I interviewed the police crime commissioner for Devon and Cornwall in our documentary. And she said to me that police are funded to combat crime, and that's their sole purpose. And suicide is not a crime, so therefore it's not under their jurisdiction. Yet they spend 83% of their time on non-criminal activity. When I asked her what that is, she said basically it's suicides, mental health issues, crisis, people escaping from wherever, lost people, and it all tied into pretty much mental health. But who is there to deal with that if it's not the police? I know it's not their, and they're not trained for it. It's not their job. But
no, exactly right.
I agree with that statement.
There needs to be something else there, doesn't there? Really, I mean, and especially when you say in that documentary, we found out each suicide costs the economy £1.7 million. So last year alone, it was like 9 billion. Like, surely there's funds there somewhere to provide a service which is going to prevent that from happening. For the financial reason, if that's what government and that worried about, not let alone for the emotional and loss of people.
Yeah.
But it's like we did a video with Sobs ages ago now. I say ages ago, probably a couple of months ago, and they said, and it hit me. I even googled it. Like, for every suicide, there's 350 people indirectly or directly involved in it.
Yeah, I reckon it is that more like that. The official numbers are like 20, which is like ridiculous.
That's true. Well, if you look at it's got to
be more like that. It's got to be more like that. Nowadays, you think with social media, with the people at school, people at work, people who know you or used to know you, or it's huge, isn't it? Ripple effect.
It's massive. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. That was a good call. Now I really appreciate that one. So
thanks guys for coming on. It's been amazing. It's been really good.
How would people find you and all this? Obviously, we'll do all the taggy stuff anyway. But how would people find you?
Go on, Cara.
We're on Instagram as at Lions Barbers. And then our website is www.thelionsbarbercollective.com. Yeah, we're also on Facebook, I think, and Twitter too, or X as it's now called.
I think if you just put the Lions Barbers into stuff, we come up pretty.
No,
Yeah.
we'll do all the techie stuff.
Search engine of your choice and all that.
No, it's all good. Thank you so much for this call. This is a good one.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Thank you again. Yeah, brilliant.
If anyone wants us to come into their business or their workplace and cut hair for free and have a fun way to talk about mental health, then get in touch or get your bosses to pay for us to come and do it for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. What a fantastic idea.
Absolutely.
That's brilliant.
And if you live in that area near Tris, go and get a haircut with him because he's a complete legend.
He is, yeah. He's a good lad.
Let me stop recording. Where me once.